would you like to speak about the
lawsuit?
Yeah,
well, as Pat said, NIFA was formed in 2000. The county was experiencing financial difficulties. Their bonds were one level above junk status. So they needed help, and they did a home rule message, which is pursuant to the New York State Constitution, where a local government requests something from the state government. The state government enacted NIFA, Nassau Interim Finance Authority. And the whole purpose when that NIFA was enacted was to oversee and monitor the county's budget and their financial plan, help the county, consult with the county in the budget preparation and the financial plan preparation. And there was an interim finance period when NIFA was first established, and that ended in 2008. And that's when NIFA had most of their power. That's when they had the power to look at a financial plan that the county proposed and modify it. Now, after the interim finance period, there's a section in the statute called the control period, and this is what's relevant now, because on January 26th, NIFA declared a control period, and there's several triggers that allow NIFA to declare a control period. One of them is what Pat said earlier, is that there's a substantial likelihood and imminence of a 1% deficit in the county's budget. And that's what NIFA declared the control period under, saying that it's substantial, likely, and imminent that the county is going to have this deficit. So in response, as you all know, the county filed a lawsuit January 31st challenging this declaration of a control period, saying that it was arbitrary and capricious, essentially saying that there was no rational basis, no reasonable basis for NIFA to do so. And the key arguments, they made essentially 4 arguments. That the idea that this deficit is imminent is arbitrary. They also made a constitutional argument under the New York State Constitution. They also stated that NIFA's powers to declare a control period are over, that they, under these circumstances, are over, that they ended after the interim finance period. And so those are the main arguments. And I think one of the best arguments is that this imminence. In order to declare a control period, it has to be imminent, meaning it's about to happen. So they have to prove that this deficit is about to take place. And what the county is arguing is, how can you do that? You're making a decision on a budget at the time that was only 26 days past. The year just started. There aren't any actual results. There aren't anything to base that determination on. So that's why they're saying that's one of the main reasons that they're saying there's no rational basis to have made that determination.
Exactly. How can something be immediately about to happen if, in reality, when the financial year ends in January of 2012, that's when we're going to know? Right. So it's based on a level of speculation. And as I'm sure you are all aware, a budget is only a plan. It isn't an actual distribution of funds. It's not all paid out at once. So there exists within the budget process a place where you can modify things to mitigate risk.
Right.
And one of the things that the county executive has been attempting to do still while this is ongoing is open up some of the labor agreements and try to exact concessions from the union. Whether or not that is going to be successful remains to be seen. However, that possibility still exists.
Right.
So it's our opinion pretty much that this is a speculative action and probably too quick.
Definitely too quick. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. An imminent thing, like I was saying, is about to happen. There's no rational basis for them to think that they can make this decision when there's risks contained in the past, in all the past budgets coming up to now. There's always risks. There's always, like Pat was saying, you modify the budget as you go along. There's always risks, and you put contingencies in case those risks aren't met. And that's what all the budgets up to this point that's been fine. They've used many different types of ways to balance the budget. For whatever reason, in 2011, with a budget that has similar types of risk, now that there's this big deficit, there's a big imminence of a deficit, and they declare a control period.
And a perfect example of that would be in the previous administration's budget. There was a line item for $50 million worth of cigarette tax that relied on state approval and change of the local law, neither of which occurred. However, because that $50 million was in the budget and NIFA refused to comment on it at the time, the budget was balanced and everything was fine, and they had no comment on it. Now, when we're doing things like enacting more red light cameras, which will pass, they say that that is an at-risk item and should not be
Right.
counted as definite funding.
and has a low probability of success. That's what they used in their analysis.